So, welcome to this special get together where we analyze Summer Editions 2024 by Shopify. Today, with me, I have some really nice persons who want to analyze the latest by Shopify. Paul and Youness, so nice to see you here. Kindly introduce yourself to all of our viewers.
Yeah, thanks for inviting us on.
Yeah, thank you, Mikko, for the organization of this. Obviously, Youness, co-founder and CTO of Autrement, we're a consulting firm based in France, Paris, and what we do is we help bigger merchants on their re-platform into Shopify, mainly retailers and B2B companies who are willing to do digital transformations into Shopify, and we do help them with before the build, during the build, and after the build as well. And I'm really in love with like all the things that we're going to talk about today, and got released by Shopify for this editions.
Great, so good to have you here. What about Paul? What do you want to say about yourself and where what?
Great, yeah. So I'm Paul, co-founder of Avant. I run the ecom consultancy side, which is the smaller side of the business. Biggest side is performance marketing. And yeah, kind of similar to Youness, I guess. So we do a lot of kind of upfront platform evaluation, technology evaluation, kind of BA work. We do a lot of like technical governance, a lot of independent auditing, independent strategy work. Yeah, primarily around fashion and lifestyle.
Great, Paul, so good to have you here. Super quickly about us, Woolman is the largest Shopify Plus partner in Europe. We've been in business for over 7 years, and I used to be a Shopify Plus merchant twice before starting the consultancy, and I've now consulted more than 370 of our customers in 6.5 years. So very excited to talk about the latest additions with you too. And we could actually start so that we could do a quick round, your like initial thoughts about the additions and the releases. Paul, how do you feel? Were you happy with everything that was released? Some pros, cons. How do you feel about the whole thing so far?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I think definitely lots of positive improvements to like the core platform. I think I've made some very basic notes here, and the three big areas for me were markets, which I think the main thing is just that it's more intuitive. Like a lot of merchants struggle when it comes to price lists and kind of administering markets. So I think that's a positive move in the right direction. Checkout and fulfillment pieces. I think one of the biggest or like one of the biggest things that people raise when or Shopify are pitching larger merchants is kind of managing some of the omni-channel stuff for retailers that have got 200 500 stores. I think that whole piece and like some of the kind of multi-channel fulfillment stuff I think needed to be improved, so that's a really positive step. And they're definitely doubling down on kind of order routing and the kind of split fulfillment piece, so that's definitely positive. And then analytics was my third one. So one, I think just being able to do a bit more customization and being able to build out proper dashboards is really positive. But I think one thing with Shopify, and essentially we are agnostic, so we work with a lot of other platforms and assess a lot of other platforms. But one massive piece of competitive advantage with Shopify is how much data they actually have in the platform and some of that reporting stuff. And I think it's a no-brainer for them to double down on that and kind of offer kind of end users an alternative to going between different BI solutions and GA and whatever else. I think that's a really positive move in the right direction. And yeah, there's loads of other little bits I think that were really positive, but as with every additions, yeah, I think huge amount of kind of hype around this stuff, and yeah, lots of benefit to the end users.
Great. Really good points there, Paul. Youness, what about you?
I think before I get into like the futures, I think we should I think appreciate the fact that they managed to pull like the release with a really big event. Like when they announced editions.dev or the event, the main event, really, it like I had this frustration why they call it editions. Why not unite? Like, you cannot just take one thing that is super well known and just change the name. And apparently it's because, for a good reason, it's because the day before is the main editions. There's also like the creative team at Shopify who built a really, really well-rounded landing page for the release, and the amount of interactions and the whole experience is really good. Regarding the futures, the elephant in the room is the new markets infra. It's a huge unlock, especially for international retailers, where if you just have like right now there is no multi-currency support in POS, and it's like to be able to have this relation between price lists, catalog. We already saw this in B2B where you have companies and catalogs, you can set it up and it works really, really well. And to bring this to B2C and retail is insane, because like you can have two shops in US, totally different catalogs, totally different prices. You can even have different currencies. It doesn't make sense, but you get the ability to control all of that and within their team, which is unified commerce, which totally makes sense. The other stuff that I was generally interested in is the improvement to POS. Like we got these slight improvements, ability to control POS from the admin without going to, like, if you have a POS in Japan, you're working with a team in Japan, you cannot like go to their, like most of the times you have to manage this from the admin itself, where you get these smart grids controls that you can do from one place. You got recipients code access. Like if you have a POS with like that has some legal regulations that you need to apply to, you can totally do that in code right now. And there is also like other small changes in POS that are important. There is the checkouts, like the split fulfillments is really good. There is also B2B Shopify Collective as well. It's not yet in Europe. I wish it was. It's really important for B2B. But it got so many upgrades. There's also the developer platform as well that got a massive like changes, especially with flow and operations. Like overall, I'm really satisfied. I think the only thing that I wasn't satisfied about is probably the changes in the storefronts. I think the direction should be more like consolidation instead of releasing like more futures into it. That's basically my point.
When you
Thanks.
say that, do you mean in terms of like expansion stores?
Regarding the storefronts,
Yeah.
basically like in the storefronts, they released like ability to have more control over like how you edit, how you like it looks like it's going to the direction of, I wouldn't say this, but like you have so many ability to make changes, like like similar to, not as good as like, flexible as Webflow, but like you get these settings which by the looks of it, it's okay, but it just opens doors for merchants to have inconsistencies within the editor. You also get like, I think there is also things that could be improved before shipping list prior stuff, like discounts, for example, segmentation in storefronts. We don't have that yet. I think that's a huge unlock. If a fashion retail has the ability to have men and women like segmentation in one homepage, that will be really, really insane. But overall, I think like it overall is great.
Some really good points. And I think like the only thing that we all missed that we weren't in Toronto, and at least I got so much feedback that why aren't you here? And that felt like really bummed me that I should have been there. Heard some great stories, and overall, when I look at everything that they announced, I think it's very impressive as a platform that you can show so many upgrades, updates in so wide spectrum. So we are talking about retail, we are talking about B2B, which is getting really big for Shopify. We are talking about markets, which means like cross-border trade, all of those. So improvements in all of those areas. and a few new features in AI and other topics. So I think it's very impressive. The only thing that I would like to see as we are handling our customers on a global scale all across Europe, overseas, is that not all the features are available in all of the markets. As example, like retail and POS, it's still not available in some really big European markets, or is coming out live later this year, and it has taken a while. So uh, if they really want to make sure that they also win in retail, it would be really important to have all the European Union countries there, and then the additional ones like Switzerland, Norway, Iceland, the other ones there, to really like build up that momentum. But otherwise, I'm super happy about all the updates, and also very happy to see that they put so much attention to detail. And maybe a minor detail, but did you notice that kind of many of the updates were also aimed at not just like end consumers or brands, but for the devs. So it's sort of like how to develop better, how to handle the environment better. So I was sort of like surprised how it was presented in that messaging. Or what's your take on that one?
I can jump in. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think yeah, some really good kind of technical improvements. Yeah, a few other things I was going to add actually. I think the thing in terms of some of the things that were missing. So I guess one of the things, or not one of the things, but I think certain things that should be a priority. So I think markets is great, like really good that they've kind of reconsidered the back end and made it a lot more intuitive. But there's still a number of features that I think are needed for like larger, if you've got a truly global brand coming to Shopify, I think there still needs to be a few more features like for kind of trading some of those local markets a little bit more effectively. So, ability to have separate kind of sort order within collections across different markets. Some of the core functionality with Shopify having like local market overrides, things like promotions. One of the biggest ones that I see for reasons for an expand or reasons for not migrating to markets yet is the external payments. So things like Klarna, I think that should be a priority for sure because, some fashion brands will be a super high percentage buy now, pay later, or, some of the international payment methods, etc. So I think that's a big one. And the one that I would like to see them do. So I think to Eunice's point on the segmentation stuff. So yeah, I know that's coming supposedly this year, but I was hoping that would be in this editions, the kind of dynamic segments and using that within the theme editor. But the other one that I want to see is proper scheduling. And I think when they're, pitching for Salesforce merchants in particular, I think that's something that a merchant just can't get their head around the fact that there's no real solution for proper kind of scheduling of content and campaign level stuff. And the same if you're pitching against some of the more kind of enterprise composable platforms, like they kind of have it in their core and they'll demonstrate it with a third party CMS. And I think some of that stuff Shopify needs to counter a little bit. But yeah, as you guys said, I think super positive. The only actually there's two other random ones that I thought were super or like really good, but they probably won't get talked about much. So one was store credit, which is kind of loosely editions related, but I think that's a massive feature for Shopify, and I think that's huge CX improvement, being able to assign store credit specifically to a customer. And I think there's a lot that can be tied to that. And the other one, really simple, but one of the biggest issues that we have with clients using Apple Pay is opt-in for email marketing. And Shop Pay is, massive, obviously, if you're using it and proactively pushing it on people, and having the addition of the opt-in, I think is actually massive, because if that's 25% of your payments, that's potential for 25% more opt-ins. So yeah, that would be another tiny one that I thought was good.
Really good points, and I actually love the Apple Pay one. And as we've looked at data, in many of the cases, the ones that are paying with Apple Pay are the high CLV customers. So
Yeah.
it's like really important audience. Youness, what about you? How
I
did you feel about
I
the
think
markets and all?
what Paul said about store credit, I like the store credit. I think it's a really good idea, but the way they released it is a bit like it's not omni-channel yet. I think
Yeah, it's
that's
ambiguous as
yeah,
well.
it's hopefully it's coming though. But I think ability to have omnichannel stock really is going to be huge. The other things that I've seen is some AI sprinkles that they released. They've announced Sidekick a while ago, and now it's released for some few batch of stores. And I think it's still like a great way of using AI. Like the way Shopify uses AI originally is really good. It's not like from mostly a marketing perspective, but you actually get like places where it's really handy, especially like the the team editor, like creating promotions, making edits, but also for smart motion, I don't see like a use case for like the image creation. I think that probably would be something that would have been in a DAM solution where you have all of your assets managed there. And I don't think merchants would probably for small merchants it would become super handy, of course. The other things that I have on like the shop everywhere, the shop component everywhere is tremendous. I think that's like ability to deploy shop on non-Shopify storefronts or checkouts is a huge direction. I think that's really important. There's also some few stuff around checkout, like they released for the first time the pickup points API. Right now, how we do pickup points at Shopify is kind of really a DIY where you have to use like delivery, where you have to do it as a delivery. But finally, we got an API for that, and which allows to integrate 3P pickup points. And I think they've also released pickup points in UK and in Spain as well. We also have checkout cheat kit, which allows basically to take the checkout right now on checkout extensibility on native mobile experiences. I think that's really important as well. We got discounts on POS for the first time, more like function discounts. This is the kind of discount that allow you to create more advanced promotion like GWPs, like BOGO, and they're also stackable. Like this whole, I like this whole idea of unified, where you get things that should work not only online, but they also work on B2B and POS. And I think that's like the whole theme about these editions. There's also things that they released around connecting with customers in tracking. I don't know if you guys have encountered this, but right now in the new extensibility, like the GTM, like tag assistant for GTM doesn't really work. Like it doesn't work because Shopify is the one handling like all of these sandboxing for tracking, and they released for the first time a pixel helper. There's also like things they've released around privacy, like for consent. That's also important as well. There's also like development stuff, more extensions for POS. They consolidated so many things on their developer platform, like webhooks. They went all on GraphQL to make sure like we get a unified, not only unified commerce experience for merchants, but also unified developer experience for builders. I think that's the whole main thing. But overall, I'm really happy with the things they've released. The new market, it's like, especially the new markets infra, that's my main thing. Ability to have multiple business entities, multi-currency, that's a huge unlock. And I think I have no idea right now, like we're working with merchants right now, and we're basically thinking how all of this is going to work with globally. I know they renamed Markets Pro to manage markets, and Markets Pro is their strong collaboration with Globally. But there's also like globally native integration right now with Shopify. And how is this new Shopify Markets, which is going to probably be released, from what I know, probably in Q4 this year and full release in Q1 2025? Like, how is this going to work with globally? That is like my main question right now, because if you have merchants using globally and they're going to be using this new markets for unified store, how is this going to work? That's my main primary questions right now on the projects we're working on for bigger brands in France here, like Maison Kitsune, for example.
I think you raised 2 points there that are really interesting discussion points. So you've mentioned globally and managed markets. So with managed markets, you'll be able to split out, or you'll be able to use kind of merchant of record and some of the other services at individual market level. So therefore, why would you use globally? So I think that's one thing which is kind of confusing. And then what does the migration path look like? What do the commercials look like if you were to move over? And I think the same thing exists with Adyen. So like right now, in order to support multi-entity and in order to support multi-currency payouts, you use Adyen. So loads of brands have moved from Shopify Payments to Adyen, but yet in a few months, Shopify Payments is going to, as they announced, support the multiple payouts. So what does that look like? Do those Adyen customers then move back to Shopify Payments? So I think that's one thing that's slightly confusing at the moment. And the other thing that you highlighted at the start was around some of the AI kind of image editing, which is very realistically, that's probably targeting more of an SMB user of Shopify. And I think the visual editing that you mentioned earlier, right now, it might be like a direction in terms of low code, but right now that's targeting a smaller merchant. And the only thing that I think Shopify probably needs to think about, and the other thing you mentioned actually was the omni-channel nature of store credit. But I think realistically, as they move it more into the enterprise, they're trying to tick off the biggest things that are an issue for merchants looking at Shopify. And I think the majority of the big merchants probably won't use Shopify POS yet. They'll probably stick with their existing POS. So I think that's probably why they've done that. But I think the interesting thing for maybe the next editions or the next editions will be they're talking to a single person company that's managed out of their bedroom, and they're now starting to talk to Adidas and Nike. And I think that'll be the only thing. It's like, do they split it? And I actually think that's probably Shopify's biggest problem at the moment, is it's kind of like they're talking to two different audiences, and I think that can get muddled.
Yeah, fully agreed, and some great points. And I think, Youness, you said really well that Shopify is now more about sort of like commerce platform. It used to be like the e-commerce platform, and when we used to look at matters from that perspective, but now it's like a unified commerce, which means that you do have B2B, you do have POS in most of the cases. And I agree totally with you, Paul, that it's tough. We've noticed it as an agency. Back in the day, we used to do SMB cases. We did pure volume. Now we are in the quality game, more looking at large to enterprise level accounts. And that actually takes us back to the markets game. So there are still some substantially large merchants who love the extension stores. They aren't there yet with the markets. They do understand why markets is great, but there's like one or two functionalities that aren't there. Or then some have really fallen in love with the extension stores. I do remember as a merchant, I used to have 17, and it was actually sort of fun to work with those. But I do see the benefit that once you go with markets, you can actually like focus on certain matters. And there's been a tremendous shift. If you look still like last summer, I spent my summer vacation explaining Shopify ecosystem partners that what the heck is Shopify Markets and why should I care? Now everybody cares, and they are there. So I've seen a tremendous change there, and people do understand the value of markets. But I do agree that getting everybody on markets will still take a while, and there are a few things that we are still lacking. However, I do like the ambition of the markets team, how fast they are developing it, and also how transparent they have been. So many of the features that now are part of markets have been flagged by us as an agency. As example, the Daniel Wellington case, the UDN case, the cases that we've done, we always learn from those. And then we have a really good feedback loop directly with Shopify. So they've been very happy about that.
I actually like different thoughts on the fact like Shopify has these SMB merchants which are pulling simplicity, and now they're talking with bigger merchants for enterprise, mainly people, brands on Salesforce. I like this because there is other platforms that are enterprise by default. They're like commerce tools or others, and you get I think you get best of both worlds with this going this way, because you get something that is so simple and it works, and also you get enterprise stretching on the other side for things that needs to be there that aren't still right now not there yet, like ability to like POS stuff. Who people in who mostly don't online like don't need multi-currency retail, but when you see these things like pushing from one side and pushing from the other, you get super good and simple products. Like, I don't know if you've seen the screenshots for the new market section. Like, it's just so smart. Like, ability to have this folder structure for each retail location, and it just works. And it's so simple, easy to understand. Like, you don't need a PhD. Like, the guy who announced it, like, literally said you don't need PhD in Shopify settings to be able to understand this. It's so simple, but it really solves like the main problems, even for bigger merchants. And I hope they keep this mental model of keeping it simple, and even when working with bigger merchants. There's also stuff that we take for granted that got released. There's an admin over like redesign a bit. Like there is the mini admin bar that now replaced with previously it was a pop-up, like every time you want to switch. Like these small UI interactions that are a bit creative, like make the admin experience even for operators like really easy to manage, in my opinion. They also centralize gift cards and payments. There's also stuff that I wish it was announced in editions, like the Adyen connector. That is like super important, and it wasn't announced. But yeah, I think overall I'm happy, and I hope they keep shipping like what they do right now.
I think to your point, I think I agree with you. Like, I love that everything's in one place, and I think for us three, it's great. Like, we're looking at it, we're thinking like, we can see everything that's being done, and we can pick and choose what we think are relevant to our clients. I think the interesting thing is that these additions updates get so much attention, and it's more like, I think there's two issues that Shopify have. One is if you're the CTO of Adidas and you're watching that, it's almost like you probably need you could benefit from having a version which is more focused on things like checkout extensibility and some of the more technical and like infrastructure and kind of scalability focused updates. But the other thing, and the other risk, a slight risk around it, I think with things like visual editing, like that is definitely like pointing in a direction where it's like reduced development hours, reduced complexity. And I think it's like if you're part of Accenture or Dept or the top SIs that Shopify are trying to bring into their ecosystem to attract these bigger brands, I think that's the only other one. It's like it's a slightly different direction. So completely agree with you. It's just I think it's almost like that enterprise focus, which at the minute feels so strong, and they've got so much behind it. It's just I think they could talk to that audience maybe slightly better, if that makes sense.
Totally, and it's sort of like a process. It doesn't happen like overnight. And enterprise is like a marathon, not a sprint. So that's something that we've learned as an agency. And Youness, the guy that you mentioned, Rohit. So shout out to Rohit, he and the team, amazing people. And the fact that if you want to operate in EMEA, and if you really want to grow in here, you need to have markets in place. So it's sort of like a no-brainer. We've covered now retail, AI, theme. Last topic. What about headless and hydrogen? What are your thoughts?
I think the fact like headless right now at Shopify, like what they released, like there is a huge gap between. This is just my thoughts. I may be based for sure. There is a huge gap between how we build teams and how we build headless on Shopify. Like the developer experience is totally different. It's one level. So I wouldn't call it like, because they also start for this unified, the same way you build things on native storefront are the same experience you get building headless. And I think that's totally wrong. I think there is a huge gap between the two. Hopefully, like the gap closes by focusing more on how people build native storefronts. But they released like new APIs for headless, especially the accounts API, which allows you to manage accounts in a more secure way. And I see them focus more and more on hydrogen, not just like general purpose headless that you would see bigger merchants probably use with something like Next.js, or probably something else like general purpose headless, because that's the main go-to headless if you're on enterprise at least. There is also like the visual editor, which in my opinion, it doesn't really have a use case or a market fit, at least like with the merchants we work with. I mean, if you have something really good like Sanity, who already has a visual editor and already has this CMS capabilities, centralized content built in, and all of this infrastructure, why bring a visual editor? I think that's just more confusing in my opinion. But overall, the developer experience is great. Hopefully, we get like more and more like centralized experience, because right now you still need online store even if you are headless. Like the checkout, the way you move from a headless storefront to the checkout is still not ideal, still not consolidated, and I think there should be a focus on that. And yeah, that's basically my thoughts.
I think my thoughts on the visual editor are pretty similar to yours. It's like one of the main benefits of, or not benefits, but one of the main things that you might want to achieve going down the headless route is more flexibility around from a content management perspective. And that's why I think you end up looking at, a Sanity or whatever else on that side. The one thing I would say though, I do think that Shopify has or not an issue with hydrogen, but I think they've got a really good solution there that realistically so many brands come to Shopify thinking they want to go headless, and then 99.9% end up on liquid. And I think a big part of that is because of the it's like a reputation thing almost. I think people just see all the disadvantages and see how disconnected it is compared to liquid. So I think having things like that from a marketing perspective, I think will help. And I do think there's more brands now that are moving Shopify that realistically, particularly the luxury brands, aren't going to be doing loads of feature work. They're not going to have super regular releases. And actually, what they're obsessed with is the front end experience and performance and everything else. So actually, I do think there's a place there for headless, but I think because of the whole industry at the moment, I think is quite anti-headless because there's been, and same with composable to a certain extent, like because there's been so much friction on projects, lots of high profile failed projects. So I think probably part of that is just to kind of increase demand a little bit for hydrogen and maybe raise the profile and kind of create a bit more positivity around it and kind of reduce the amount of kind of difference between liquid and hydrogen.
Totally. And to be very transparent, I by no means against headless. I used to actually run a headless Shopify store back in 2017 when people didn't even talk about headless. But that what we try to evaluate as an agency, that when headless actually makes sense. And now with these new themes such as our Taiga and the others, they are so good that the use case for headless is it's only every now and then. So we are doing few projects every single year. I think it's interesting the sort of like announcements related to headless and B2B. We built like B2B projects that are now like 6 figures, really impressive. Shopify can be B2B, that's great. But now that you could actually do like more complex things with headless B2B, I think that's something that is interesting. But just it's not a volume product, at least for our customers. Even though there are some that are selling like 100, 200 million online, they can do with native Shopify really well. So it's sort of like it's an option. And then again, like how much attention do you put to something that is just an option? But if it's very important for the enterprise game, then maybe you should put more attention. And then the question is how to sort of like mobilize all the partners and agencies and everyone there. And I think like what they lately announced that they will have now these kind of like online courses where you can get sort of like credits for understanding the big picture. I think that's a step to the right direction. Any other thoughts before ending this session?
I think like, what's your thoughts on B2B headless? Like, have you guys seen any use case for that, or?
Well, for us, not that much, because the majority of our B2B cases are actually such that they are not even migration cases. So it's their first sort of like e-commerce. They've been running the operations on, as example, Excel sheets or whatnot. It can be 20 million, 30 million, 5 million, but they haven't had a platform per se. So Shopify B2B is actually their first actual like online e-commerce platform. So those have been very common, but B2B can mean so much. It can be so different use cases. So we've done them with our theme and native Shopify, and customers have been very happy. The only thing that we've noticed is that B2B e-commerces start remind of B2C e-commerces. So they want to have better recommendations. They want to have these bits and pieces that B2C e-commerces have built on for years. But that's just like our vision. We are now currently, as example, evaluating 2 separate cases where they would like to have like headless B2B due to the complexity, really high SKU volume, and a few other topics where they feel that they would like to go with headless, or that their current build on another platform is headless B2B.
I think from my perspective, I think I'm sure there are some B2B retailers that have complexity on the front end, and that will be beneficial for them. But I think if I was trying to build a platform for B2B, I would be doubling down on complexity in the back end more so than the front end. But I would imagine it's probably driven by the market. I think maybe if they're pitching some larger, like obviously, I think if you look at the B2B market, I'm sure the majority are a few years like way behind B2C, and they don't need headless. But I'd imagine some of the big ones that Shopify may be pitching, and when they're pitching against some of the other platforms in the market that are composable and headless only, I wonder if it's more that, or even like if businesses are moving away from commerce tools or away from other B2B platforms that are headless, I wonder if it's more to kind of tick some boxes from a sales perspective. But I think, yeah, from my perspective, I can see kind of why they've done it, but yeah, I wouldn't like if you were investing in the B2B capability, it feels like that wouldn't be anywhere near the top of the list, I guess.
One thing that they released as well, I totally forgot to talk about, is all the changes regarding taxonomy. I think that's pretty smart. Like the way you have these products categorized, and all of that is powered by AI, which is a really good use for AI, and you get all of this recommendations in when creating data models or mapping data models inside Shopify within meta fields or meta object. When you want to try to create a meta field and your product is like a t-shirt or something, like automatically recommends the exact the recommended data for that product. And all of this, I think it's indexed inside Shopify, and they're probably going to use it in shop for merchandising, etc. There's also one thing that I totally forgot about. Like it just came to my mind, it totally disappeared. Well, let it go.
Come back to that. I think your point on taxonomy. So, like, I think the other thing that Shopify, like from a higher level strategy perspective, historically, if you were a big brand using Shopify and you were early to Shopify, you would likely have a PIM. You would potentially have an OMS. A lot of brands right now have a CDP, but Shopify are definitely moving in a direction where you don't need a PIM. Like I was talking to someone the other day that has 6 million products on Shopify and they don't have a PIM, which like, I don't think that ever could have happened 2 years ago. I think CDP, with all the segments and all the improvements around kind of how data is structured, like you really need a CDP, especially if you're using POS and potentially B2B, and they're all kind of within Shopify's ecosystem. And then with the order routing stuff and the fulfillment stuff, you need an OMS? And at what point does that go down to an ERP? Like, I do think Shopify is becoming the Windows of commerce. And, for 90% of use cases, there'll be 10 where you've got additional complexity or, niche requirements. But I think for 90% of use cases, it's like Shopify could soon be end to end.
We literally had just like a talk with a really big brand here in France the other day, which are in Salesforce, and one of the things they pointed out is, can we do order routing inside Shopify? Can we do that? Like that's like, and that's a great example. Like the example I forgot to talk about is the combined listing app. That is huge for fashion. Like ability, like the way we used to do it is so DIY. You create a parent product and you assign all of these sub products as midfields. But now with the app they've released, and it's also a new API they've released under the hood, it just makes things so much easier to create, to group this kind of a product by a t-shirt by color, or like by other option names, and I think that's really powerful, especially in the fashion and lifestyle.
Great point, gentlemen. I want to thank you for your time. Paul, Youness, we'll come to Paris with Paul. I'll buy you lunch, all three. And I feel like I'm like speaking from everyone's mouth, but when they have Editions Dev next year, here are three guys who would like to be there. So we were bummed to miss it this year. Hopefully we'll be there next year. And the last but not the least, special greetings to Harley and Bobby. What would you like to say, Youness, Paul? I think Paul is muted. Let's try again.
Sorry, I was going to say, yeah, just great work on this round of editions. Like, it feels like the enterprise and kind of Bobby's impact in particular is pretty big, and like all the issues that would come up when assessing Shopify in the past, like vast majority are gone now, I think. So there's only a few left. So yeah, definitely good progress.
Great, Youness. Any greetings to Harley and Bob?
Yeah, I'm really happy with editions. I think the things they've announced are like really good, solves many of our problems, especially with the markets. I think it's like I always say, it's the elephant in the room. But yeah, I hope they keep it up. I like we got used to editions right now. It's something that is just a tradition right now. We get editions every 6 months. And I hope to keep it up, because it really like the velocity that they ship at is something that should be used as an example, and I hope they keep it up, and they keep shipping the really important stuff.
Last comment would be bring back Unite. I think some of this stuff coming out of Unite and like having the volume of people that would be there now would be like amazing. So yeah, I think that needs to come back.
I've been hearing really good things about this event, and I really hope it's not a 20-year thing. Hopefully we see it next year.
Every year, and bring back Enterprise Summit. That was great in LA last year as well. So we are very much waiting for next events. So I want to thank you, Harley, Bobby, and all the others. Thanks for the pace of innovation. You've done a great job so far. Very curious about the upcoming 6 months. And if you want to share any comments, please comment below on this post. I'll make sure that we'll tag Paul, Youness on our contact details, so feel free to be in touch with us. Thank you for today. Have a good one.